Hello there, I'm Alan Davalos from Lines Front-End Development Center, also known as UIT. Welcome to UIT Insight. UIT Insight is a podcast for developers who love user interface technologies. We usually do a weekly podcast in Japanese to cover all sorts of information related to front-end development. However, from now on, we'll be doing episodes in English every now and then too. This time, we'll be talking about overcoming language barriers when working as a front-end developer. But first, let's briefly introduce ourselves. I'll go first. So my name is Alan Davalos. I'm a Mexican front-end developer and I work for Line's Tokyo office. And I've been usually going in the in the Japanese podcast, and my main job is usually doing design systems. And today with me, I have...
Oh, well, okay. So I think I'm supposed to introduce myself now. All right. So my name is Cipto Hartanto. I am from Indonesia. I have been with Line Taiwan for 4.5 years. And I think the same with Alan. I work with UIT.
Great. It's nice to have you, Cipto.
Yeah.
So today, as mentioned before, we will be talking about overcoming language barriers because, as you can hear, like we're both like foreigners working in different countries, speaking
Yeah.
different languages. So we both have a pretty interesting context there.
Sure.
So first of all, I think one thing I think we should address first is like, what do you think like is the hardest part when you're working in a language that's not your native one? Because in your case, what's your language situation, Chipto?
I think the hardest part will be adapting with the cultures. I think the first time I came to Taiwan, I was pretty shocked by different ways of people expressing their ideas. But with time, I've learned a lot of, or I would say like I've been adapting pretty well and enabling myself to see the differences as something that I can work with. And at Line Taiwan, I think this is actually my third job, so I have experienced like different positions. So when I got to this job, things actually got a lot easier, especially when I deal with different departments, when I have to work with them. And I think the differences that I used to think really interesting now have become something that I know of, that they are not really intimidating at all.
That's actually pretty interesting. Like, so you think like when working in line as a front-end dev, you're having less troubles than you had in your previous jobs?
Yeah, I would say so. And also, a lot of my coworkers, especially in Taiwan, they're Taiwanese, but I think they have great exposure to foreign friends or foreign languages. So I don't think there are actually a lot of difficulties for me to talk with them. And they like to make friends with foreigners. That's what I see. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that I think that's actually a pretty interesting point you make, because like
Yeah.
it's kind of different when you are sometimes like speaking with someone that's like used to people who are not like native speakers and like not people from the same country. So then when you're not, because like I think they sometimes have like a different kind of attitude, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, Alan, I'd like to share something that was asked when I was being interviewed by the HR of Line Taiwan. So she said this question: if you talk to your coworkers and you find they sound funny, will you laugh at them? And I said, no. Well, I'm from Indonesia and English is not my native language. I also struggle. I also invest my time, and maybe I still have like words that I don't know how to pronounce well. So I don't think, um, well, when she asked me that question, that really kind of like hit me like, hey, like you're not, even though you speak English, but it's just like a communication medium where you want to express your expression so that they understand. So I'm not expecting anybody uh, on my team to be like a native speaker. So maybe from that attitude, like you said, I never really think like, hey, you sound really weird or like, I can't really get you. So I think from there, like everything just goes very, very smoothly. Like I never really care about like, oh, wrong tenses or wrong grammar or something like that. To me, everything is fine. Yeah, so I can enjoy talking with them. And most of my colleagues, they are pretty good at English, I think. Well, I'm not, like I said, I'm not an English native speaker, but I feel they are brave enough to talk with me that they know doesn't really, speak Mandarin that well. But yeah,
Yeah, so
we gotta try.
that's actually something I was wondering because like this is something I don't even know myself. Like in the Taiwan office, what language do you normally speak? Is it Mandarin or English or what is it?
Right, that is actually good point. To me, for the first, I would say like 3 to 4 years, um, I prefer to speak in English. I kind of switched my approach to this. Recently, I've been really trying to practice more Mandarin, and in my new projects, I try to speak Mandarin more. I used to have like probably like something that was not really pleasant when I was, trying to talk to my coworkers, and I ended up being upset because I took their maybe like the way they talked was not just like how I would expect them to reply uh, my my ideas. So I kind of felt like, well, maybe I'll try to speak in English because, well, I think I feel it's just like a lot more clear for me to speak in that language. So I will not make them confused, and I will not have like unexpected replies from them. But like I said, I've switched to speak more in Mandarin now, and I feel like as long as uh, I have something to say and I know what I'm going to say, I think things are going to be fine.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty interesting point you make there because like I'm not sure because I know in Indonesia you have a lot of languages. Like, what would be your native language? Do you say?
My native language is still Bahasa Indonesia, Indonesian language. We speak it every
Okay,
day.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because like I know you have like a lot of languages you speak in Indonesia, so I just wanted to make sure. So I think it's really interesting in your case because like you're working, and I think it's really similar to mine because like your native language is Bahasa Indonesia, and then you're speaking either Mandarin or English at work, and in my case,
Yeah.
my native language is Spanish, and I mostly speak Japanese and sometimes English at work. So it's actually kind of interesting, like how we both have to like work with like different languages that are not our native one.
Yeah.
And I think the approach you have is pretty interesting too, because one thing I've noticed a lot is that like when you speak your native language, the way you express emotions is different than when you speak one that's not your native one. I don't know if you feel the same.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly different. Like if I were to talk to my Indonesian friends, like we got a lot of slangs, like words for maybe like young people, but when I speak in English, like it's mostly just like for professional purposes. So I can tell there are a lot of differences, but I always try to engage my audience when I talk, so they don't get bored by like, hey, I don't really get what you just said, man. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that's
Yeah.
pretty interesting because I don't know, like in my case, I think it's been a bit of a process because before coming to work in line, I pretty much never spoke Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
Like I knew how to speak it, but almost didn't use it. So I had to like learn a lot of like domain specific language, like a lot of like the programming related words I had to like learn while
Wow.
working basically. So it was pretty hard to be honest at first. Like I sometimes heard a lot of words and I was like, what is this
Right.
word?
How long did you
Because
actually spend your time on learning Japanese?
I mean, I think in my case, for I spent like 3 years like learning in school, and then I spent another seven like learning by myself.
7 years?
And yeah,
Oh,
so
wow.
I would it would be like total 10 ish, I guess. But uh, still, even then, like when I came here and I started working in Japanese, like I had to learn a lot of words because like when you
Yeah.
learn like a language, you know how they don't really teach you a lot of like work stuff. It's more like daily life kind of stuff.
Yeah. I can,
So I
yeah.
think in my case, I had to learn a lot of that kind of vocabulary.
Yeah. I think from my experience here, I don't have any problems talking to people like on the streets. I can like make conversations going with them. But when it comes to explaining my, let's say I have a PR and I have to explain why there are changes there, and that will be the time when I feel like, I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That I think it's like that's exactly the same process I went through, and I think you probably have it with Mandarin, especially right now, and I had it a lot with Japanese. Like I don't know, like it's just getting used to like how to I don't know how to express those ideas in a
Yeah.
way that's easily to understand.
Yeah. Well, it definitely takes practice. So the more we, I guess, we put ourselves in the situations where we have to try, I guess at one point we will just nail it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
What would you what would you say were are some like tips you would have, because I think a lot of people who are going to listen to this are not going to be like super like native English speakers, just like more people who want to learn more English, for example.
Uh-huh.
So what would you say like are some like good strategies that help you like with this process of like explaining ideas and stuff like that
All right.
we were just mentioning?
Okay, so I think first of all, I would suggest everybody that is interested in advancing their language skills first have the confidence, because when you feel confidence, then you will have the courage to go further and try. Even native speakers, like in my language, I make mistakes. So mistakes are inevitable. Like you will run into mistakes. But when you really try and get up when you fail, I guess you will eventually come to a point where you feel like, wow, like I have gone that far, and I know like can talk to a Japanese, for example, if I'm learning Japanese, or I can talk to like an American because I've been speaking English. Like I've been trying or practicing like maybe like more frequently. Now I'm pretty confident to talk with them. And when you want to express your ideas, start small, because when you talk, sometimes people really have no idea what you're going to talk about, even though it's probably about something in common, like common sense. But
Yeah.
talk talk about something simple first, and when they are engaged, then you can try to put like some more maybe ideas. So start small and see how it goes, and I think that will make you feel more comfortable talking to them.
Yeah, I mean, I think you made like two awesome points that I actually completely agree with you on both of them, because I think, for example, I see this a lot, like especially with Japanese people, uh, like I think they all have like a very good understanding of like reading English, but they don't feel confident on like speaking English.
Mm-hmm.
And I see this happen a lot and it's not only Japanese people. I've seen this in Mexico, and I've seen this in everywhere I've been. Like, I think the way we are taught languages, like what the way we are said, like, oh, this has to be perfect. It's not right. Like the grammar is not proper. The spelling is imperfect. Like
Yeah.
usually that on a day-to-day basis, like you say, like everyone makes mistakes. Like especially native speakers make a
Yeah.
lot of mistakes, and like you can't be expected to be completely perfect just because it's not your native language. Actually,
Yeah.
you should be cut some more slack because of that.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like we just need more encouragement from people, like instead of like being judged. Or sometimes I don't know, maybe because like you said, we were taught since we were kids, like, hey, look at your friends, like he speaks better than you or something like that, and then now we feel like I don't know, like I don't feel, not only like feel confidence, like you don't even feel like you are willing to speak a word in like a foreign language. So put it aside, just try, it's fine.
Yeah, because like usually, and I've had this happen a lot when talking to my colleagues in different like projects. Like sometimes I forget a word, or something that happens to me a lot is that when I write quickly in Japanese, I make a lot of spelling mistakes. Like for example, instead of saying like a word for, like this happened to me yesterday, instead of using a word that means issue, like to issue something, to like,
release something,
create something. Yeah, and I used a word that means like I think it was something like, what was it? Let me remember. It was something like curating something, like in like how you like curate like you cure like yogurt, like you like make it like bacteria get there.
Oh, okay.
Because they are written the same, like in well they sound the same. So when I wrote it, I just wrote quick and I put that, but they still understood what I wanted to say.
Yeah. Well,
And they didn't like correct me, because it was like, yeah, I know what you're saying. Like no one would say like you're going to put bacteria in some code, right?
I guess, oh yeah, one more thing. Ideally, when you realize your audience or the one that you're speaking to probably is not as advanced as you are, and we can try to go a little bit lower and try to be at the same level and try to get engage with the conversation. So we build up like some kind of confidence into the person you're talking to, so he feels, or that person feels like a lot more excited when the next time this person sees you or meets you, and they'll be just like, hey, what's up, Al? And hey, what's up, Tipto? I mean, because they feel comfortable talking to you. No offense, no like judgments, just being friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you say, no, like making a safe space, like where they feel like they won't be judged because they were speaking a bit weirdly, or they use the wrong words, right?
It's understandable. Everybody makes mistakes. Happy mistakes.
I think that's great. And do you have any other like tips you want to mention about this topic?
I would say go and give it a try. You'll never know. I mean, I also started like as a person that really had low confident level, but at one point I just got to that point and I felt like I can do this, and just prove it to yourself. As long as you feel like you are fine with all of the maybe uncomfortness when you're talking, I guess you will go through those times, and like time will refine your skills. So yeah, not only just speaking in different language, like if you want to learn something new, like it takes time, it takes ups and downs, so just go ahead and give it a go.
Yeah, that's a great
Yeah.
tip, to be honest. And I want to touch a bit on a bit of a different subject.
Sure.
Because I think like we sometimes are both involved in these kind of meetings, and this is something that happens quite frequently sometimes in line. So I want to know how you feel about it. Like, you know how there's sometimes like when you have meetings with people from like different countries, right? Like for example, we too sometimes have meetings with some people from the Korean office too, and we have like this triple like uh interpreting system, like Korean, English, English, Japanese, Japanese,
Yeah.
Korean, something like that. So how do you feel when we are in those kind of meetings? Like what do you are careful with when you are in that kind of situation?
Um, I think in my experiences, like some interpreters, they have really different ways of interpreting the context of the communications. But what I can see, they will always try to just say whatever they hear during the conversation, especially if, for example, Korean counterparts are talking or saying something. They will just like will like just like
Mm-hmm.
translate it literally to us. But perhaps it's still something new to me. So there are also times when I really can't really get the whole picture of the context. But I guess during these kind of meetings, I guess it's pretty tricky to completely have the same understanding.
Yeah.
I would probably ask questions if I really feel like I have questions regarding something. But mostly, if the context or what the interpreter is saying during the meeting, like okay, I kind of get it. Like I will just like skip it. But if I completely have no idea, then I will ask questions.
Yeah, I think, and like you mentioned, like I think especially in that kind of situation, sometimes like asking the questions is even more important than where you were speaking in the same language,
Yeah.
because like there's a lot of like possible mistranslations. So like just making sure like you like ask it again in a different way so that
Yeah.
like they are like it comes back and you can like double confirm. Like I think it's even more necessary in that kind of situations.
Yeah, that's pretty true. I agree with that. Like I said, different interpreters. Well, usually when we have these online meetings with like different offices, like we don't even know like who we're talking to and who the interpreters will be. So it's like we can't actually choose which interpreter we want to work with today, right? So like all of a sudden we have the interpreters with us, and they help us for certainly even for sure. Well, we have different backgrounds, like the way we speak, the way we understand context can be different to how they actually will deliver the message when they interpret the context of the meeting. So yeah, asking questions if possible. And I also noticed during these meetings, usually noisy because there are different voices in the background, and you really have to focus because at the same time there might be people in the background speaking besides the interpreter, and you might also want to take a look at the visuals.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are a lot of things that we need to really adapt to. But I guess as long as you feel ready for the meetings, and I guess you can try to ask questions first. And if you really don't get the answers and the time is up, you can always come back to maybe like the moderator or whoever that hosted the meeting and ask for clarifications, I guess.
Yeah, that sounds like a great advice. To be honest, like if I had to add anything that, and this is not only for like this kind of meetings, but also like when you like in our case, we also have like this situation where we have like automatic translators for the chat tools and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
And I think, and this is something I even wrote a guide about that for actually for the rest of the UIT members, and it's that like some tips to make sure the things you're saying are going to be more like less easily mistranslated. Like, for
Mm-hmm.
example, like a couple of things I remember I wrote is that, for example, like avoid using things that are not super literal, like idioms and stuff like that, because like when you use those kind of
Mm.
things, it's easy for the, like you said, like the translators tend to be pretty literal, and that is even more true for like automatic translation. So if you
Yeah.
say something like piece of cake, like even something like that can be like just literally translated like as a piece of cake instead of like something being easy. So yeah,
Mm.
avoiding, and I think that also applies when you're speaking with someone that's not like super advanced in a language. Like if you avoid
Right.
using that kind of like complicated language, I guess it would make it easier for the
Yeah.
other people to understand you.
So I guess from me, still what I would say, just make it simple and try to not overcomplicate stuff.
Yeah, I think that it all ends up being like that. Like it, sometimes when you're learning something, you tend to like create these super complicated sentences.
Yeah.
but
Just to show
but
off a
but
little bit.
sometimes all you need, yeah, exactly. But sometimes all you need is like just subject, verb, predicate. I mean, if you were speaking in English, obviously, like just like a simple, short phrase,
Hmm.
and then stop, and then put another phrase, and then stop,
Yeah.
and you continue like that, and they will understand you. You don't have to be super fancy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for beginners, when they really feel like, hey, I really want to give it a try, just go simple first. And the more you speak, the more you practice, not only languages, you will feel more comfortable doing something more fancy, I guess, right? But in the case of like communicating with different people, we can't really say like, oh, this person speaks good English, or like, oh, this person is a native Japanese speaker, so if I make mistakes, they will understand. So we just, I don't know, I guess just assume everybody. Well, I'm not saying like everybody's learning, but just make sure everything very easy to understand. Like you said, maybe we can avoid like using of like phrases that are um, probably used in like specific areas, or idioms that we maybe like don't really use, or just use, I don't know, like something that is not very simple, I guess. Just make it simple.
Yeah, yeah, things that have like all this like cultural background, like slang, as you mentioned
Mm-hmm.
before, like this kind of stuff. It's sometimes like for this kind of, especially in a job where like communicating efficiently is key, or at least like that's how you avoid like problems later on. So
Yeah,
it's better to just try to keep it as simple and as tight as possible.
right. Especially when you're talking in business settings, maybe make it
Yeah,
simple. If you're doing it for casual stuff, maybe, yep.
yeah. Maybe then you can like do some fancier stuff.
Exactly, man.
Yeah, I think we've talked a lot of stuff. So let's just finish up with one extra uh, topic. In every part of life, there's going to be a point where you're in a tough situation, right? Like you're in a really complicated situation, and like maybe you're in a deadline or something like that, or like there's like a super urgent meeting you have to have. So how do you keep your cool and when you're in that kind of situation? Like what do you do?
Oh, okay. I think the best way to handle those kind of situations is to be prepared and be ready. Um, I've been trying to wake up a lot early recently, because seriously, I feel like um, when we have extra hours before we start our day, it will just make a
Mhm.
big obvious difference in how we actually handle our day. Like we get to set the the mood of the day, if you will, because you have extra hours before you start your work. You get to exercise, maybe you get to like if you like meditation or you like praying, you can do beforehand, and you know like your day will be busy and packed up, but you have control before it even starts. So I guess my only option, my only suggestion and how I have been dealing with this is by having some extra hours before I start my day. And of course, like we talked earlier, like we make mistakes and never hide them. So if you know there are things that you don't know, or like things you might have missed in your work, like just admit and learn from it, and basically improve and show to your company or your friends or to your department that yes, I did make mistakes, but I learned from it, and now I'm a new person. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that applies like not only for languages but pretty much for everything, I guess.
Yeah.
Just a mistake is not the end of the world. To just keep working to make it better.
Well, failure is actually when we actually stop doing what we feel like we have to do. Then it's a failure. So mistakes are something, or they're just like part of our success stories. I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, that makes a lot of
So
sense.
no problem. Just go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great
So
closing.
what about you though? What about you? Do you have any maybe tips to spill on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think like you said a lot of great stuff right now, and I mean, I personally in that kind of situation, like I like you say, like especially in those kind of situations is when you have to be more confident, I guess, because if you start like losing control of yourself, you're just going to end up like saying nonsense.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it's like try to stay calm and just do the best you can in the moment, and if you mess up, then just learn from it and keep working on it, because like I think especially with languages, like I think you never stop learning, like even your native one, but especially when it's not your native language, you never stop learning. So it's just
Sure.
keeping up, like trying to learn up new stuff and just getting better every time you can.
Yeah, I agree with that, Alan. We just keep improving and keep trying because we have time.
Yeah.
We still have time. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, Chipto, do you have any final thoughts you want to share?
Actually, I have a few questions, but I guess I'll just ask one of the most interesting ones to you. So you work in Japan, and a lot of people, well, especially people from outside of Japan, especially me here, I feel like working in Japan is pretty exhausting. I'm not sure if that's true or not. But in your case, how do you manage maybe your time, and like how you work with people in this well-known, like work environment where maybe people are super, I don't know, like maybe we can say like super effective, so they have like schedules and like pretty much like they have like a lot of processes defined before they start. So I don't know, do you have any tips for or maybe like from your experience, like how you manage all of those coolness to work in Japan?
Yeah, I mean, I think the image people tend to have from Japan like might not completely apply to my case particularly, because like and like probably like the culture inside line is not like the thing people imagine when they imagine like a Japanese company, to be honest. Like it's pretty, how should I say, like it has like some of the good things about like Japanese companies, but like some of the good things of like foreign companies from Japan's perspective. So I think in that sense, like it's not super tight and like in the way you're forced to work in a certain way sometimes. Obviously we do have a lot of processes, but I think it's not so different from what you might be experiencing, for example, in the Taiwanese office of line. Like I think in general, like the culture is pretty like chill in a way. I mean, obviously we have objectives and we have deadlines and we have to work, but it's mostly a thing about like, yeah, you have to, like, you have an objective, and as long as you
Right.
do that in the allocated time, it's pretty much okay. So
Yeah.
so yeah, that's basically it. So in that way, like, I don't think it's super different, I guess, to your experience maybe.
Wow, that's cool. So, working in Japan, especially Land Japan, like if you want to work in any of the offices of Land Japan, sounds very attractive because, like I said, I feel like working in Japan can be very exhausting, especially like the overtime cultures and like people really
Yeah.
work hard and like I don't know, they seem like they please their bosses like a lot, so I don't know. But if that's true, like I guess a lot of people might be considering working with Land Japan because besides the like more modern cultures, maybe like more, I don't know, like startup cultures, I guess. So people have more time to work on their stuff and maybe still have objectives, but not as like you said, as tight as the normal Japanese work cultures. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, yeah, and actually, like, that's a good segue into one of the things I'm going to talk in the closing things. But yeah, basically that's mostly how it is. So yeah, in case anyone's interested, like, we are hiring.
That sounds very
But yeah.
appealing.
But I might be biased. No, it's okay. We're a great place to work. Anyway.
Yeah.
So I guess that's it for today. So let's start finishing this up.
Okay.
Well, today we talked about overcoming language barriers, plus a couple other things. And as mentioned before, we will be releasing new episodes in English in addition to the usual Japanese episodes, so please look forward to those. And as a last note, as I just mentioned, so Line is currently hiring, and you can find some of our open positions, especially for the UIT department, in the episode show notes, so please take a look. And thanks for listening. We hope to see you again.
Yeah.
Bye.
See you guys again. Bye bye.